everyone. Thanks to you, Program Director, for giving us the opportunity. Mine is to introduce Harvest Chartered Accountants and introduce the next speaker. This gentleman that I'm introducing to you this morning formed Harvest Group in 2014, and Harvest Chartered Accountants was formed in 2010 and was previously known as Malamba Enterprise Development Services, together with his two partners that are with us this morning, Mr. Justice Mohanelwa and Mr. Fulufelo Nsandeni, who are all chartered accountants. The company is 100% black-owned, and it boasts employees, 64 employees, 80% of whom are youth, 40% first-time employment, and female occupies 53%. The Harvest Group was founded with the intention of offering an array of business support services to entrepreneurs, and the group is made up of the following divisions: Chartered Accountants specializing in audit, advisory, and tax practices; Harvest Institute of Commerce, ICB, CIMA, accredited distance learning institution; Harvest Risk Solutions, medical aid, life and risk cover solutions; Harvest Office Technologies, IT networking, hardware and support services; Harvest Marketing and Media, branding and printing solutions. In addition to the qualifications offered by Harvest Institute of Commerce, the group is currently in a process of registering a training academy which is intended to offer artisan skills and qualifications to contribute towards the reduction of unemployment in the country. The gentleman that I'm introducing to yourselves, he was registered with the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants as a chartered accountant in May 2007. And in March 2009, he was admitted to the Independent Regulatory Board of Auditors as an auditor, having completed his articles at KPMG. In 2008, he joined the University of South Africa as a senior lecturer, where he lectured BCom honors class specializing in auditing. Whilst at UNISA, he founded Malamba Enterprise Development Services, which in 2011 was re-established as Harvest Chartered Accountants Incorporated. In December 2013, he was appointed to the Universal Services Access Agency of South Africa as a finance expert to the Audit and Risk Committee and the Business Development Committee. He is a recipient of the South African Professional Services Award for Young Professional of the Year in Commerce Management, and this he achieved in 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2015, he was a finalist in the SAICA Top 35 Under 35, and his topic this morning, he will be talking about transformation in the accounting profession and small businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Martin Mulalo Mudau to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lidwawa, for such a comprehensive introduction. Program Director, Mr. Daryl Swanepoel, Honorable President of the South African National Congress in absentia, Honorable Minister of Small Business Development, Minister Lindiwe Zulu, Treasury General of the African National Congress, Dr. William Kize in absentia, leaders of business, members of the media, invited guests, the European Union representation, ladies and gentlemen, we are greatly honored to be here today to host the Progressive Business Forum networking session at the ANC Policy Conference. Our excitement is informed by our confidence that this session will realize its intended purpose. Today, I'll be talking about transformation in the accounting profession and small businesses. The future of this country belongs to a much broader base of people, as many of the speakers before me over the last few days have emphasized. Despite this truth, we still witness on a daily basis how opportunities and wealth are still controlled by a selected few, which stunts growth and participation of small businesses in the economy. This is also true of the accounting profession. Since 1977, when the first African professor, Wiseman Nkulu, qualified as a chartered accountant, the representation of black people in this profession is still sitting at just over 10,000. This number is still less than 30% of the total qualified chartered accountants in this country. Despite the fact that 75% of all trainees in public practice are employed by small and medium-sized firms, with approximately 58% of learners in the contracts being held by black trainees. The Big Four audit firms still continue to dominate the industry. There are almost 400 companies listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange across the main board and the Altex. According to the research done by the IRBA, which is the Independent Regulatory Board for Auditors, about 94% of companies listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange are audited by the Big Four audit firms. The rest is shared by the 12 other firms, which we believe that a very insignificant number of those companies are black-owned. The Big Four firms, just to emphasize, include KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, and Ernst & Young. While we commend the JSE for the recent changes made to the listing requirements to support transformation by encouraging racial and gender diversity, it is still alarming that some of the Big Four audit firms have held audit engagements with the same clients for over 100 years, with fees in excess of 100 million rands per annum. Without regulatory intervention, and despite the audit risk imposed by the familiarity threats, lack of auditor independence, the realistic chances of Harvest Chartered Accountants or any other black-owned firm getting a slice of that pie are very little to none. This undesirable status quo emphasizes the need to foster partnerships between policymakers, the very same minority capital, and black business to redress the economic imbalances created as a result of our unjust past. As such, we welcome the intervention by the IRBA to introduce mandatory audit firm rotation on all JSE-listed clients. Sadly, the mandatory audit firm rotation only comes into effect from the 1st of April 2023. Honorable guests, this is in 6 years' time. Even then, audit firms can still retain the same client for a further 10 years before rotation is made compulsory. This is only a drop in the ocean. That can possibly take 16 years to bring about further transformation. This is the evidence of the minority monopoly capital, which as a result should be vehemently opposed to. Having said all of the above, we need to influence and participate in the government's effort to bring about radical economic transformation. As part of the existing JSE Training Academy, the JSE should consider conducting workshops and provide assistance to new and up-and-coming audit firms towards meeting the listing accreditation requirements so that they can also qualify to provide auditing services to JSE-listed entities. JSE must always look at ways of enforcing subcontracting by the Big Four audit firms to small and medium black-owned firms, as the current CA Charter only awards a minimum bonus point for supporting this imperative initiative. Other organizations, like ESCOM, provides a good example of this subcontracting rule. These efforts will bring about immediate economic emancipation, long-term growth and sustainability through skills transfer, giving business an opportunity to build a track record which will allow these firms to stand on their own and also to be in a position to support the bigger firms when needed, as partnerships between the Big Four and the small firms will become inevitable. As a South African auditor, we are proud to say that in terms of the World Economic Forum competitiveness ranking, South Africa is ranked #1 for strength of its audit reporting standards. This high quality and compliance to auditing standards goes a long way towards instilling investor confidence in the South African investment opportunities, including investment in JSE-listed entities, and the perception of the credit rating agencies, which also supports investment grade status that our country seeks. Our intervention is by no means aimed at compromising the global competitiveness and high quality standards that have been set before us, but is aimed at empowering young black-owned auditing firms so that we can continue to uphold the #1 ranking of the South African auditor, regardless of the racial composition. We would also like to further commend the government on the revision of the BBBEE Codes of Good Practice, and specifically the CA Charter, as another means of bringing transformation into this sector. The revised charter places emphasis on 3 of the 5 elements of the BEE scorecard as priority. This includes black ownership, skills development, and also enterprise development. We believe that the charter did not place enough emphasis on enterprise development, which, if implemented correctly, would be another way of encouraging the Big Four audit firms to put in place more initiative and develop skills transfer to small black-owned firms. Although as Harvest Chartered Accountants, we applaud and thank firms like KPMG who have made efforts to comply with this element through their Skills Transfer University, which provides training to employees from small and black-owned audit firms at no cost to the recipients. And Harvest is very appreciative to be one of the beneficiaries of this initiative. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, in a period such as this, with jobless growth, it has never been more important to encourage small business growth. However, we should shy away from restricting black participation to only informal and small businesses. We need to start actively encouraging the African child to have a big dream and to carry boundless ambitions. African child, believe in yourself. Your dreams are valid. To quote the late former President Nelson Mandela, "It is always impossible until it is done." Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Yes. Good morning from the 5th Policy Conference here at NASREC in Johannesburg, south of Johannesburg, and breakfast. We taking Martin after that. We take. Okay. Can we tell the minister to be on we live on SABC?
Yeah, but we're going to take her up now while you're doing the.
They're going to take her up. They're going to take her up. They're going to take her up while we're doing this interview.
Well, mustn't worry about those things while you're doing the interview with the businessman. Remember, it's Martin Mudau. After.
Eh? Martin Mudau. Daryl's going to be very short, eh? He needs to go up. More. Right, okay. Good morning, and we're coming to you live from the 5th National Policy Conference, the National Ruling Party's Policy Conference here in Nasrec, south of Johannesburg. And we're on day 3, and we're coming to you from the Progressive Business Forum's breakfast meetings here. And today we have Minister of Lindiwe Sisulu, who's going to address the PBF this morning, but I'm joined now by the convener of the PBF, Daryl Swanepoel, who's going to tell us a little bit about the breakfast so far. Good morning, Mr. Swanepoel.
Morning.
We're on day 3 of the breakfast. How's the engagement been so far?
Well, I think the engagements have been very good. This is a series of breakfasts. We started on the first one with Minister of Finance, Mulusi Kigaba. We then yesterday had the Minister of Trade and Industry. Today we have the Minister of Small Business Development, as you have mentioned, Lindiwe Sisulu. Tomorrow it's Economic Development, and then we'll close off with the Minister in the Presidency. So to us it's important. The Progressive Business Forum is about creating a platform of dialogue between corporate South Africa and our representatives in government. We believe that government needs business as much as business needs government. We need to have a partnership for growth, and that is what these engagements are about. It's also important, we believe, that when we have these engagements, that you have large corporations and the SMME sector involved. The SMME sector ultimately control about 50% of the GDP and 60% of the employment. So by excluding them from the policy making processes, you're excluding 50% of the economy. And that's why engagements such as this morning are so important.
Just quickly, what have been so far the main themes that have emerged from these breakfasts?
I think the main themes has been the issue of transformation. But what I've also picked up is that its transformation is being seen in a positive sense. Business are realizing that transformation is not something that needs to be imposed, but that it's a business prerogative. That without creating the transformation that we need, we are actually going to suppress growth of the economy.
Mr. Swanepoel, thank you so much. I'm going to release you now to get on with the program. Thanks for joining us. That was Daryl Swanepoel, who's convener of the PBF breakfast. And we're now going to be joined by a representative from the sponsors of today's breakfast, which is Harmony Chartered Accountants, and his name is Martin Mdau. Now, breakfast is being served here. We've just heard Mr. Mdau address delegates here, and what was very interesting that he, right at the beginning, is that 80% of this company's employers are actually young people. So I'm joined now by Mr. Mdau. Mr. Mdau, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's really interesting, I think, that a company like yours has focused on youth. And can you please tell us, what made you take this forward?
Thank you very much. As a company that is owned by youth people, it only made sense for us to employ other youth people. And also based on the economic factors, in many cases, young people are not highly priced in the market, considering that a lot of young people are in their first time employment. So it also makes it, from an economic perspective, it makes it a feasible alternative. But this also presents a challenge that when you employ young people, people in their first time employment, unfortunately as a small business, it makes it difficult to retain such talent, especially when you get a good talented employee, because the larger firms out there with bigger budgets, with bigger salaries to offer, they normally take the opportunity and snatch most of those employees away from us, and there's one of the challenges that we've been experiencing as business.
Now, as a young professional, we've heard so much being spoken about radical economic transformation and inclusive growth. What are your thoughts on this?
Once again,
Radical economic transformation, I believe that is a necessity. However, it depends on how we deliver that transformation. Our aim is to participate and make sure that the government provides a platform where radical economic transformation can take place in the accounting profession and towards supporting of small businesses in general.
Thank you, Martin. Well, it's all set here for the Minister of Small Business Development, and I'm going to hand you over to Darryl Swanepoel, and we're going to take you live to this event. Thank you very much.
Enough for you to have given us that time. I would also like to welcome the Treasurer General of the ANC, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, for joining us this morning. This is the third morning that he's made time for us. Thank you very much, Dr. Mkhize, for being with us. Without any further ado then, I would like to call on the Minister of Small Business Development, Honorable Lindiwe Sisulu, to make her input. Minister Sisulu.
Thank you very much, Comrade Darryl, as a Program Director. And thank you very much, Comrade Zweli, for being here this morning. And I would like to firstly thank you, PBF, actually, for utilizing this time so effectively while you have all of us in one room. It's usually very difficult to get all of us in one room, and I think that it was really a smart move for you to have this going on. I'd like to thank everyone who took time to get out of bed when it is so cold. I know that it's very difficult to get out of bed in the morning, but for us in the African National Congress, we have no choice but just to wake up every morning. I also would like to thank Harvest Chartered Accountants, because I know that without the support of business, PBF would not be able to operate. The African National Congress, like any other organization, does need both financial and human support in order for us to be able to carry out the task that we have in front of us. And allow me, Program Director, to start from where Martin left, if I may say. He said we must not create an environment where black business is only restricted to informal business and small and medium enterprises. I can say to you, Martin, that yes, I am a Minister of Small and Medium Enterprises as well as cooperatives, but I have absolutely no intention of working towards those SMMEs and informal business to remain just there. The greater responsibility as a Minister of Small and Medium Enterprises, working together with other ministers, is to see black business grow. That is our mandate, and we will do everything in our power to make sure that we are not diverted from the task of ensuring that small and medium enterprises grow, informal business for those who want to get out of being informal into the formal, because we do appreciate and understand that some would want just to remain where they are but sustain where they are and make some bit of profit so that they can be able to take care of their families. But at the end of the day, and in particular, responding to economic transformation, it is our view that we have to do everything we can to make sure that, firstly, transformation is supported, and secondly, those that are already in high-end sectors are also supported. and therefore you're breaking it down to us in as far as the state of chartered accountants and black in particular is of concern to us. But however, as government, we don't only remain being concerned, we look for solutions thereof. I also heard you very well when you spoke to the need for regulatory and legislative interventions and to support black people in particular. And I know that in some quarters, they keep saying South Africa is becoming over-regulated. But the bottom line is that we are forced into this regulation because, legislation and regulation, because if we don't do so, then we will not be able to ensure that transformation happens, and it happens as quickly as possible. I also heard you very well when you spoke to the issue of fostering partnership. And yes, my Department of Small Business Development and Cooperatives is committed to partnership. If I may just take a step back and say to you all, when I was appointed as a Minister of Small Business Development, and of course you have to be a member of Parliament, and the first voice that I had from the opposition was that there is a trust deficit between government and business. I did not take that lightly. I took it that if they're saying so, I must find out whether they're just politicking or for real there is that problem. And I did realize, especially that part of what they were saying was true. And then for me, it was, let's not cry and moan and groan about it. Let's do something about it. Let's call upon the private sector and ourselves to work together in support, firstly, of economic transformation, and secondly, in particular, radical economic transformation. Let us engage so that there is a common understanding of what this is all about. And so I'm saying to you all who are present here in the room, and I must say that, Comrade Zweli, one of the things that really worries me at all times is the fact that when we organize these kind of meetings, it's always ourselves who are full in the room, and the other side who are supposed to be with us, the big business and so forth, they don't necessarily participate as much as we expect them to participate. And therefore, again, I would like to say that as a Department of Small Business Development, we do believe that the partnership between government, business, and black business in particular, and as well as our communities, we will make this South Africa a better place. I also did hear you, Martin, when you spoke to the issue of skills transfer. And that, as a Minister of Small Business Development, is something that I can relate to very well. To say that many of our people do not want to be where they are. They didn't choose to be where they are, but circumstances kept them where they are, and therefore the issue of skills transfer plays a very important role in almost everything that we do in support of small and medium enterprises. Here we are to discuss the most critical issue or issues in South Africa as the African National Congress collected here under the policy conference. And I think before I even go into talking specifically about my department, I would like to say that slowly but surely, we are beginning to feel the impact of a Department of Small and Medium Enterprises. We are beginning to feel why small and medium enterprises themselves, particularly black, were advocating for the formation of a department. And because we are aware of the fact that many were complaining, not many actually, some were complaining that there's no need for this department. Comrade Zweli, if you recall very well, when I was appointed, you were the first person to speak to me in Luthuli House And in your hand, you had that document, which I still have, the document that had been submitted to yourselves as the top 6 and yourself as treasurer. You were given a report by NAFCOC long before I was appointed as a Minister of Small and Medium Development, Small and Medium Enterprises. And that document was one which was calling upon the government of the African National Congress to consider having a Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises and Cooperatives. And they clearly indicated the reason why. And they were not the only ones who did so. There was quite a number of other black businesses in particular who had approached the African National Congress to say, we know that you're trying to do the best that you can, but keeping us in a small unit under the Department of Trade and Industry is not doing justice to the needs and to the needs of small and medium enterprises. And we're 3 years down the line, and I can assure you that in the 3 years we have, as a department, not only looked at what was in the Department of in the Department of Trade and Industry, we've taken all the programs that were under that department and reviewed those programs with an aim of ensuring that whatever programs we have in place are programs that respond to the felt needs of small and medium enterprises. Permit me, Chairperson, to say, Program Director, to say that part of why we are here today, and I think that in almost all the interviews that we have been doing since we arrived here, there's been an issue about radical economic transformation. We have had to explain ourselves over and over and over what exactly do we mean by radical economic transformation. And I think for those of you who have gone through the document, the policy document of the African National Congress, employment creation, economic growth and structural change, strengthening the program of radical economic transformation. And that starts on page 77 of the document. Page 78, one of the paragraphs, or a few of the paragraphs, explains what exactly this means. Primarily, and I'm quoting from the document, primarily, radical economic transformation is about fundamentally changing the structure of the South Africa's economy from an exploitative exporter of raw materials to one which is based on a beneficiation and manufacturing in which our people's full potential can be realized. In addition to ensuring increased economic participation by black people in the commanding heights of the economy, radical economic transformation must have a mass character. A clear objective of radical economic transformation must be to reduce racial, gender, and class inequalities in South Africa through ensuring more equity with regards to income, ownership of assets, and access to economic opportunities. An effective democratic developmental state and efficiently run public service and public companies are necessary instruments for widening the reach of radical economic transformation, enabling process to touch the lives of our people. I can't imagine any other simpler way of explaining what this radical economic transformation is about. And I also believe that collectively, as South Africans, we have to make sure that we buy into this concept, because this is a concept that is going to be able to assist us. In another document, which was penned by the economic transformation, and in particular by Comrade Gugile Nkwinti, he further says about the definition This definition has critical features of elements which force us to engage with the ideological underpinnings of radical socio-economic transformation, consider forms of action which should be undertaken to advance this revolutionary cause, and the kind of monitoring and evaluation framework to track progress moving forward. The said features or elements of the definition are systems, structures, institutions, ownership, management, and control. I rest my case when it comes to that, because I think it clearly indicates exactly what we are talking about and how we can be able to ensure that we advance economic transformation, particularly for Black people. I would also like to then go directly into our department as a Department of Small Business Development, and also indicates that we do not work in isolation. We do not believe that we can be able to deliver to the needs of small and medium enterprises and those that are in formal business as well as cooperatives if we do not work together with other departments. Because when we look at the expenditure of government and the kind of services and the kind of things that government is looking for, we believe that that expenditure of government can be able to assist us as a department in supporting small and medium enterprises. Collectively, we must spread the understanding that economic empowerment of Black people is a political and economic imperative. Over time, we must engender the understanding that it is natural that in an economy of any African country, as with South Africa, we should have in ownership, management, and beneficiation reflect the active and meaningful participation of Africans in particular and Black people in general. And having also said that, we are very conscious of the fact that in the main is young people today, and it's women, and it's people with disability who need a full attention of our department. We must be honest enough to admit the depth of the political, economic, and social challenges our country faces. And we must be courageous enough to recognize the domestic and global conditions that give rise to these challenges. But courage also resides in acknowledging the subjective factors, issues that are a consequence of our own action or inaction that aggravate our situation. We must be prepared to recognize that even amidst the great difficulties we now confront, there is progress, there is development, and there is hope. Even as we struggle with a low growth rate, and even as we come to terms with the causes and practical impact of the recent ratings downgrades, we should not lose sight of the fact that work is being undertaken across the economy to boost investment and expand our productive capacity, improve our skills level and develop our economic infrastructure. And I think that both the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Trade and Industry did go a little bit into what government intends to do in responding to this particular challenge that we face. But also, as a government, collectively, we have come together to look at what does this mean, particularly for small and medium enterprises. And my department is and will be making some contributions towards how we think we can be able to deal with this challenge that we are having. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm asked to wrap up because of time. I would also like to say the three spheres of government, in my view, is the way to go, which therefore means my department must make sure that there is proper coordination between the three spheres of government. We have, in the 3 years that we've been in office, realized that at all three levels, there's some agency or there's some government support that has to go to small and medium enterprises. But then we realize that there is poor coordination between the three. Not only is there poor coordination between the three, there is also poor coordination between the financial development agencies. In our case, we have Small and Medium Enterprise Finance Agency, which is SIFA. We also have SEDA, which is Small Enterprise Development Agency. When we look at that, we find that in almost all the provinces, there's some agency that is also almost doing the same thing. And it is our view that what we need to do as a department is to be at the center of coordination of support for small and medium enterprises. But also before I sit down, I also would like to raise an issue which I think is of major importance to us. In supporting small and medium enterprises, we think that we have to work together with the private sector. The private sector also sits with a huge resource, which we think that if we were to unlock that potential, for instance, you will recall that in the beginning of last year, there was an announcement by the private sector that they were going to set aside 1.5 billion for supporting small and medium enterprises. And unfortunately, it's also taking a very long time because small and medium enterprises, particularly young and black, are saying, Minister, you were there sitting part and parcel with the president making the announcement of this, but we're not seeing it yet. When is it going to happen? So we believe that we have to work together so that what they have decided to do, because this is not a government fund, this is a fund which is solely by the private sector. We were informed that they had to make sure that the systems for allocation and the system for ensuring that people access this fund are in place. We were also informed that there's a fund manager already who has been working around to say how are people going to be able to access the fund and how are they also going to run the fund. But we also believe as government that we do need to have our own fund because the challenges that I've seen in the 3 years are in this space. Those that are entering into business, those that are doing startups and all, they don't have the money. Neither do they have, when they go to the banks to do loans and so forth, do they get the money. The second leg are those that are in the middle who can see that there's a potential for them to grow. They just need a little bit more of financial muscle in order for them to get to the next level. Then the third level is those that are really at the top and almost succeeding, who also need a little bit of boost in order for them to break into the bigger stream of our economy. As a department, we are looking at the Department of Trade and Industry, looking at your black industrialists and looking at ourselves as a Department of Small Business Development to say the feeder to that black industrialists should be people also who are being supported by our department. Hence, we started the program of what we call the National Gazelles, where we select the top 40 of the high-end performing small and medium enterprises. And I must say that it was very interesting and exciting for us to hear that. Since we were supporting the top 40, none of them have collapsed. None of them, their businesses have collapsed, which means we are in the right direction in as far as that is concerned. We've got the top 40 out of 200, and then the 160 who remain, because the top 40 have to be given R1 million, not the money into their hands, but the money goes into purchasing equipment and a whole range of other things that they need. And so we believe that if we can keep that program together, we can begin to slowly see the empowerment of black business, in particular women and youth. Finally, I would like to say that this conference, which is taking place here of the African National Congress, even yesterday, when we were in different discussions of strategy and tactics, as well as organizational renewal, it was heartening for me to sit in a commission where the issue of small and medium enterprises and black business in particular seems to be occupying the front space. So that means the reason why a government had to have the Department of Small Business Development is bearing fruit, because then we don't have to be policing people to talk about the support that is necessary for small and medium enterprises. So we are hoping that the little that we have in the document, and I'm hoping that you will also continue to contribute, because what we have here is a policy conference. The final decisions as to which direction do we go with our policies is going to be in December. And I'd like to say to PBF, please continue the engagement, because between now and December, there's a lot that can be done to continue contributing towards the document. Because I must say, Comrade Zweli, what we have here in as far as small and medium enterprises is very small, and we still need to really expand on it. We really need to give it meat much more than what is in the document. And I'm hoping that by the time we also conclude the conference, and by the way, we only started at the past 2 days, we have not yet gotten into discussing the sectoral issues which would also touch on the economic transformation. And I'm sure that by the time we conclude here, when this conference ends, we would have gotten quite a lot in relation to how we think we must support and focus on small and medium enterprises, whether it's with relation to legislation, whether it's with relation to regulation, whether it's with relation to really being radical about some of the ways the things that we can do in support of small and medium enterprises. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for giving us that introduction. I'm sure a lot more will be fleshed out during the question and answer session that's going to follow. But before that, may I call on Dr. Mkhize, Treasurer General of the ANC, to share his thoughts on the topic with us as well. Dr. Mkhize, please.
Thank you very much, Daryl, the convener of the Progressive Business Forum. Minister Lindiwe Zulu, Minister for Small Business Development, Business Development and Cooperatives, the sponsors, the Harvest Group, ladies and gentlemen, the members of the Diplomatic Corps who have been very supportive throughout the past few days, and of course other colleagues from the leadership of the African National Congress who are present, leadership in business. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. These morning interactions are important platforms just to share your views, to raise your questions and give us advices and proposals, which we will be looking into as we go into the discussions in the next few days. I thank the Minister. This is the third Minister we're hosting for the morning breakfast shows. We had Minister of Finance, Minister of Trade and Industry, now we've got Minister of Small Business. I think the important thing for us is to say that in this program of radical economic transformation, small and medium enterprises development is one of the most important aspects. That includes cooperatives. It's important because in most countries, the largest numbers of jobs are created by the small and medium enterprises. And therefore, it's important for us to grow this sector significantly. And I also agree with this, that we cannot leave, when we think about black business, we must only talk about informal economy. Some years back, President Mbeki spoke about the two economies, and the second economy, which is more informal, largely black, under-resourced, not as successful, high failure rate, and is completely dissociated from the mainstream economy. We cannot, after 23 years, still have that type of delineation of our economy. We need small and medium businesses and cooperative to be integrated in the mainstream economy, which means, therefore, that the reason why this particular department was created, as we've heard from the minister, is to encourage a kind of framework that will enable small and medium businesses to thrive, which means that we need to find a way of having a conversation with the big business to say to them, the business of small business, the business of small business is that, the business of the big business is to be able to find space for the small business. In other words, it should not just be expected that government must have procurement reforms and the big business does not. There has to be a whole program of reviewing our procurement legislation, which is right now is underway, to make sure that small businesses can find a way to do business with government and that they can be protected. And when I say protected, I'm not, it's actually right, then there must be a way of protecting them. And for me, protection basically means that government can, within the constitution, within the law, within the PFMA, find a legislation that allows that government can stratify the contracts that it's got. So you've got a contract that can actually allow a certain level of turnover for small business to tender for. Then they can compete there. But it does not have to be a situation where you've got a space where there are small businesses that are decimated by one big player who comes in and take over everything. I think we must face those kinds of issues head on. And of course, the other issue that's been raised quite consistently has been on the side of government to make sure that the 30-day payment rule works, that all of those small businesses who would have submitted proper invoices, well documented, clean, straight, they must be able to get paid within 30 days. And that, in fact, that kind of issue has to have some kind of decent incentive for heads of department where the largest number of small business invoices are not paid. And in the process of the procurement, I'm happy that there are many small business organizations that are participating in the process of review, which I think is a very worthwhile undertaking. But for big business, I think it's important also to say that we need to call on them to have procurement reforms that opens up space to create markets for the small businesses. Otherwise, if you do not have that, you have a situation where it appears as though the only sector that must worry about small business must be the public sector. It cannot work. And so this is the other area that we need to look at. Of course, the major issues that relate to the small business, as we have heard from the minister, is that one of the finance, access to finance. We've been calling now increasingly for a creation of a black bank that must actually cater for the needs of the small businesses who are actually getting neglected by the big banks. We've had a discussion with some of the big banks. They don't seem to be convinced on this argument, not that I expect them to be convinced. The point is that we need more avenues, more facilities that will assist the small businesses to be able to have access to finance. Another point which I hope we can find time to discuss with a minister, probably more with the Minister of Finance, is the issue of creating tax incentives for those private sector who might want to invest in small business development, and therefore they know that you can make money when you support small business. Because that seems to be the one thing that might be able to help guide some of the investors to go into townships and some of the neglected informal economies. But there's a huge amount of money there. And sometimes people create an impression that small businesses don't pay. Actually, those are the ones who pay, because the rules there are a bit rough. With the loan sharks there, it's a law of the jungle. You can pay up to 50% or above in terms of your repayment cost of that particular loan. Now, we need that sector to be protected. And so I believe that that area is an area that we need to look at. And so access to market, it should not just be about government having to do something. I think big business must do something about it. It must be a new way of doing business in South Africa, where big business must look out and say, this area, we are going to encourage small businesses to participate. I found it interesting, Minister, we got to engage with General Electric when they got a contract with Transnet. Amongst the large companies that were involved then, they came and asked us for an advice, and we said to them, look, what we think is important is to be able to focus on small business development. And they engaged with NAFCOC. Somewhere along the process, they ended up with about a few smaller suppliers who they thought they would be interested. But then they said they were not good enough for, the kind of standards that they were looking at. And so they initially thought of dropping them. And then we said, well, we think that you have actually made the point. You found them, but they are not up to standard. So your job is to bring them up to standard. And then they agreed. And at the end of the day, they've now been exposed to the GE's international global procurement systems, which means it's possible to actually build from local entrepreneurs and of course, link them up to much larger operations. So the point that we want to make for this morning is that our interaction must lead us to a point where we understand what the ANC is talking about when we talk about radical economic transformation. It's a whole manner of areas where we believe that change has to come, and a change must come for the purpose of promoting more and more entrepreneurial activity in the neglected communities, in particular in the small business and small and medium sector business sector, as well as in the black business area, where we are able to get as much, as much of the experience and skills to be given support to grow. And that is what this radical economic transformation is about. We hope that this morning's engagement will allow us space to share some of the views you have, and then of course we'll continue to have our discussions. At the end of the day, the time to change the base from which our economy is going to grow has come. We need to work together to make sure that there's growth, and that growth is inclusive, and it's happening at a level where more and more participants, owners, are able to be part of this economy. And that's what this discussion is all about. We hope that you enjoy your morning show, but we hope that we'll also get some ideas that we can take into the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mkhize. Right, now it's the engagement part. The conversation starts. If I can have an indication from you who would like to fire off with the first question. And as I said earlier on, if we can just try and keep it as brief as possible so we can accommodate as many as possible. I've noticed the first three, and we'll start right here in the front. Can we have the mic in the front, please?
Thank you very much, Program Director. Comrade Minister, thank you for your passion for us, the small business people. My question is about something that I hear so little about at policy conferences. It's an acronym, KPI, Key Performance Indicator. And my concern is that in the space that relates to small business development, how are we going to measure our success if we do not have a target in terms of the percentage or the volume in number terms or in money terms that small business should control? Business is about money. Business is about numbers. And I like the fact that we have words and adjectives and all these descriptives of what needs to be done and beautiful things. But what is the target in terms of numbers against which our success can be measured to say, yes, we have achieved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just show me, yes. Can we move the mic to the back there?
Thank you very much.
If you could just introduce yourself and
Well, we've just heard Minister of Small Business Development Lindiwe Sisulu and ANC Treasurer General William Kize talk about the importance of small businesses in the economy, and both of them reiterating that for the economy to be stronger and to be successful, small businesses have a vital role to play. Both of them saying that in countries abroad, small businesses provide the largest number of jobs in economies, and that is what we should strive for in South Africa, especially in a climate where unemployment is so high. Zweli Mkhize reiterating radical economic transformation once again, and Minister Lindiwe Zulu the same thing, saying that we have to be radical about it, that there has to be urgent transformation in the economy, that more people need to be on board, and it's not just the government's responsibility to transform the economy, and it's the private sector that need to come on board as well. So pretty much similar themes coming out this morning at the PBF breakfast, and of course tomorrow morning we're going to be with Minister Ibrahim Patel in the morning, and we're going to take you back now to Alicia with media monitoring. And from Nasrec, south of Johannesburg, thanks for joining us.
In terms of speeding up radical transformation, the same method that was used when this land was taken away from us is the same way that we should, approach. People were entering into deals. They will negotiate deals. The same way that we should approach business transaction in the country, it should be through negotiated deals if we wish to speed up this particular process. Because there's quite a lot of things. I mean, you might have a capacity to deliver a service, but you still have to go through competition of tender processes. That has got its own challenges. I think that way it will be able to help us. If possible, let's this conference look at other ways in which we can be able to fast track the business development of small businesses in the country, and we cannot remain small business forever. Engagement of big businesses that have already made, the impact in the business, are supposed to support small businesses. But if we say, let's go and compete with small businesses, and you want to inform them that they should at least give a certain percentage to small businesses, if there's no policy that controls that, you might see it not happening. Like he said, like the minister said, that others wanted to pull out of this and that because of lack of capacity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I thought that small business would understand the concept of a small question. But all right, if we can go to the table over here.
Oh, thank you. Already have a mic here.
Where are you?
Thank you very much. I'm from the company called Masana in Limpopo province. Today, I heard the minister talking about buying this issue, radical economic change. If there are people who buy this group, the business people, who are very happy to announce that we go for it, for this issue, radical economic transformation, and we can see future from it. Today we are talking about manufacturing and industrialization. I don't want to quote things that happened in the former government. I don't want to talk much about it. Today, the big financial institutions, they see us, particularly as small business, as a high risk when we come for finance, because we can't go for industrialization and manufacturing without money. I want to suggest I don't know whether you have a policy of incentives as a form of empowering these small and emerging companies, because in some areas we had this infrastructure in terms of the institution or let's say the companies and the infrastructure in terms of manufacturing the product. We have those things. They have been shut down because of no incentives, no other suggestion and empowerment. Everything is there in place. We want to, I also heard the minister or Zwelim Kise talking about giving incentives the small business. I'm also suggesting or just consider, because we have got workers, some of us we have got 40, 50 workers. We need incentives to boost and support those incentives, those workers under us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to take the last two questions for this round. The gentleman there, and we'll end with the lady.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Johnny Ramezi. I'm from Northwest Province. My company is Prothern Industrial. I must commend the Minister for what she has said. I'm a beneficiary of Top 40 Gazelle. And what she has promised.
Yeah, let's give him applause.
The 1 million rand grant has been paid, but the balance is not yet paid, but we don't complain. That money did not go to our pockets, but go straight to equipment that we were needing to expand our facilities. We are in the corrosion space where we produce and manufacture the metallurgical consumables in the mine. The mining industry, for example, is a very difficult sector. You say you're a Gazelle and you need your support and you must grow your business to 300% as a target. If you can't measure, you can't manage. We have been doing that, and we are ISO 900 2008 company, which means we have a system that assures quality. Small business that does not translate to inferior quality. We are being audited by TUV, company from Germany, to check our quality assurance. And we have passed 2 consecutive years with 100%. That is our biggest problem, because we must maintain that 100%. And my question is, Minister, can you consider, as you have said, and it has been said yesterday, that Gazelle program is a feeder to industrialist program? What institutional mechanism, I know you have plans, but maybe you can highlight, in terms of getting maybe institution of high learning or any training institution that can understand your language of how to capacitate a black emerging businesses. Because black people, we must admit that we were treated as traditional society, but not as industrial commercial society. Now we are being told that we are on the 4.0 industrial revolution. That is the kind of society and implication that we are going to have. Obviously, our children are there, but we are not there because we are born before technology. What mechanism can you help us and help those who are aspirant industrialists? And we ask you because we think you can come out with something.
Thank you very much. Last question for the round, the lady. Good.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Veronica Mudeling. I'm from a company called Veromo Enterprise. I also call myself #SMME ambassador. Minister Lindy Rezulu, on the 14th of June, in collaboration with the Gauteng provincial government, we hosted a Young Women in Business seminar. And in preparation for that event, we approached SIFA, we approached SIDA to come and speak about the programs that they have and what can they do for small business? Unfortunately, SIFA didn't come on board, SIDA did. In this case, what I'm trying to say, Minister, is that we had young women there who invented a circumcision underwear, and her problem is access to market. As Treasurer General was speaking, small business have problems with access to market. How can this young woman who invented such an important thing for men, how can she be helped to grow her business and to also help other provinces as well, and other people don't go to the hospitals? Again, she won the Gauteng Acceleration Program. She came on a first place in that program. How can this young woman be helped? And also, we struggle as young entrepreneurs as well, because there's a construction side that people are not empowered. We want to open a construction college. How can we also be helped on that? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Minister, I'll ask you first, and then we can get TG to comment.
Thank you very much. I think I'd like to start with that question of key performance indicators. Firstly, as a government, you will recall, or I think you all are aware of the fact that in the National Development Plan, we agreed, or we concluded, that 90% of envisaged 11 million jobs are expected to come from small and medium enterprises. Now, that being the case, this cannot be a responsibility of the Department of Small Business Development alone, because we do not create the jobs. We only support those that have the companies who then in turn create the jobs. And therefore, the indicators here, in my view, and this is just the 3 years that I am in office, I think that we need to still find a way of creating a system that can assist us to see the measurement thereof. But of course, from a bigger point of view, is that it's about how many jobs that have been created by small and medium enterprises as well as cooperatives, which is something that measurement is done broadly by our economic indicators. For instance, if I can make an indication that last year, if I'm not mistaken, 2016 or 2015, SARS indicated that there were 18,000 new SMMEs who registered for tax, for paying tax. Now, one might get very excited about that, indicating that, oh, okay, it means there's some companies, new companies, that are beginning to make it to be able to pay the tax. However, the issue for me particularly was, who are those SMMEs? Where are those SMMEs situated? What sectors are those SMMEs? I even ventured into, we need as a department to check how many of those new SMMEs that we are talking about are black, are women, are youth. Because those are the elements you can use as an indicator to see whether you're going the right direction or not. And I think that part of what we need to do, obviously, as a department, working, of course, with other departments, is to begin to collect that data that sits in many different places, so that when we say 90% of the 11 million jobs are envisaged to come from SMMEs, the issue is we might think 2030 is very far away. It's not. It's just around the corner. And I have been asking the department for us to really see, to check whether this we are going to be able to to make it or not. And if we are going to make it, well and good. But if we are not, what is it that we need to do to make sure that we do? And therefore, we also look up to people who are in the space. And therefore, I would say, for instance, the first question that came about indicators, there's a whole lot of research that is also being done, which is lying all over the show. And we believe as a department, that's why we have in the department, we also have our own monitoring and evaluation unit, which is connected to the monitoring, the planning, monitoring, and evaluation, which is headed by Comrade Jeff Hadebe. Because part of what we think is important is, in order for us to have the facts and the figures, to know and have the indicators, we need to have our own monitoring and evaluation. And I can also say that from an ANC perspective, we are also part of the people that are saying the ANC on its own does need to have its own monitoring and evaluation, because we don't want a situation where the tail wags the dog. And it's important, therefore, for yourselves, even PBF, it might be of interest to you because you are also a business vehicle for your small and medium enterprises and business in general, to say what are the systems that we can put in place. Yes, we understand that currently the economy is not doing very well. Yes, we understand that we are on a technical recession, but what we have done as a department, because this will also impact on the very 90% of the 11 million envisaged as job creation, we have, as a department, working together in the economic cluster. The president actually has called us to a meeting to say, we have this situation. What are you going to do about it? And all of us as ministers have been requested to come back again to present to the president as to what interventions are we going to have in order for us to make sure that we address this situation. And I think the Department of Small Business Development has an opportunity at this point in time to also make its contribution as to what exactly can we do to support small and medium enterprises, particularly at this time. And for small and medium enterprises, we believe that the situation is compounded by the fact that they do not have the kind of support they need. Because when the economy is not doing well, when there's a technical recession, the impact thereof on SMMEs, coupled with that is also the fact that many a times, as the TG said earlier on, SMMEs need to be paid on time, and in instances they are not paid in time. I do want actually to deal with this issue that as a department we are welcoming, and we have welcomed the contributions or maybe the systems that are being put in place by government in general to deal with the issue of non-payment of small and medium enterprises. And I'm excited to hear that I hear more and more, in Gauteng in particular, I hear more and more being told that the government of Gauteng has been doing its best to make sure that invoices are paid within 30 days. They've actually reduced that time to even 15 days. We also hear that provinces like the Northwest and the Free State and Limpopo, no, not Limpopo, Mpumalanga, as well as the Western Cape, they've also got systems that are trying to ensure that small and medium enterprises are paid on time. With regard to the second question that related to, from Gauteng, that we need to speed up the radical economic transformation, and I do appreciate and hear you when you say that the old system did that in order to empower, for instance, the Afrikaner. We believe as a department and as government of the African National Congress that we need to open up the space for all. And we must make sure that the process is fair, the process is transparent, and the process is accessible to all. We are, of course, conscious of the fact that it's near impossible to think that you can be able to empower all at the same time, particularly when you live in a country like ours, which is still under a capitalist mode of production, where the competition and a whole range of other things happen. We believe that we have to do the best that we can to ensure that we open up this space, and part of what is now radical economic transformation, and we're very happy with the work that is being done, for instance, by the Competition Commission, which is helping us to really look into this monopolization, into this monopoly. And we can see from the results of the Competition Commission that they really are doing a sterling job to expose. What I think we need to focus on as a department, as Comrade Zweli said earlier on, yes, we can find that monopolization. Yes, they can be, what's the word now? They are supposed to pay some amount of money for penalties. Yes, I was looking for the, sometimes it's lungu siyahlupa. I was looking for these penalties, and ngicabanga ngesizulu. So the issue is, what do we do with those penalties that are paid? 1. 2, how do we make sure that they don't turn around and say, yeah, you are giving us these penalties, you are fining us, but we think the money that we are paying must be used this way? Those are just some of the things that as a department we are seriously looking into, to say, let it be ourselves as government, let it be the small and medium enterprises, let it be those that feel the pain of not having the money, of not having access to markets, of not having access to training and all that. Let these people be the ones that contribute to what needs to happen with this money. And I'm happy that we're working very closely with the Department of Economic Development, and they've really done a sterling job in as far as chasing that is concerned. And I also think that I agree with Gauteng that the radical really needs to be real radical. And therefore, when we come to the issue of our gazelles, for instance, we had very serious arguments about the gazelles themselves and the 80-20 and 90-10 situation, practical situation. You've got a gazelle that won actually, because they competed, and it's an independent process that of finalizing who the top 40 are. Here is a gazelle that was very excited because they managed to be part of the top 40. And then we say to them, we'll give you the $1 million, and then they go and find the equipment that they want. Guess what? We then say to them, we're not going to pay the 80% to the service provider until you pay the 20%. And they turn around and say, but Minister, where do we get the 20%? Because the reason why we are struggling to see how we can be able to be assisted is because we really are struggling. We have to run the company, we have to pay salaries, we have to get profit out of this, and now you've given us this $1 million, but you are saying you're not going to pay the very $1 million to the service provider until we pay the 20%. So I said to them, keep trying to get the 20%, knowing perfectly well that it's very difficult for them, but I said, keep trying. But at the same time, I went back to the department and I said, we need to find an easier way of doing this, because if there's the 80-20, let us give the 80% to the service provider, and let there be a negotiation between the gazelle and the service provider with regard to the 20%, because I think it can always be negotiated. But, well, those are some of the discussions that we need to have. That's what brings me to that issue about what is it that we can do in order to be seen ourselves, to be supporting our people in a different way. Same thing happens with the 90-10. most people come back and say it's even difficult to even get the 10%. But we're also saying to small and medium enterprises, because that gazelle that came to us and said they can't have the 20, guess what? They found a way of getting the 20. So which means it's a very difficult, a delicate situation. Sometimes you can say, go find the 20, only to find that you are making more problems for them. We are creating more problems for them. But sometimes they can be creative, they can be able to go and find that. Now, as to the gazelles being a feeder into the Department of Trade and Industry, black industrialists, we are the ones who went to the Department of Trade and Industry and said to the Department of Trade and Industry, when we look at the top 40 of our gazelles, we can see that some of them are in the manufacturing sector, and therefore, those that are in the manufacturing sector, those that are in the sector of industrialization, these are the ones that we need to support, and therefore, let's work out a mechanism of how they can be supported, being a feed. We can feed them into the Black Industrialist Program. And we are on a very good discussion with the Department of Trade and Industry. There actually is an agreement that we need to look at it. What was very exciting for me, recently I traveled to New York, not New York, I went to Washington. And part of my engagements in Washington was to have a meeting with the World Bank. I didn't raise the issue of the gazelles, but it was in the meeting of the World Bank where they said, we are very excited about the fact that you've adopted the concept of gazelles, because it's not our concept. It came from a number of other countries, and they were saying to us in August when they come through, they would also want to share with us their support for countries on small and medium enterprises. And this issue of gazelles, they think that it could be a very good concept that South Africa could look into, particularly because we want industrialization that does not exclude your small and medium enterprises, do not exclude black people in particular, one that is all inclusive. So we're looking forward to that conversation with the World Bank when they come here. With regard to SMME ambassador, can I have a one-on-one with you when we finish here? Because I think that part of what happens now, I realized, a lot of our SMMEs run to connect to SEDA and CIFA at a national level when we actually have provincial offices, both of SEDA and CIFA. But we also try to make sure that both SEDA and CIFA, when they go to places, they must be together because they are a package. We found that SEDA was that side and CIFA was that side, but they actually should be connecting to each other. So we are trying by all means to make sure that whenever they are expected to come and explain what they do and how they support and what incentives they have, what loans they have, they must go together, because non-financial support and financial support for small and medium enterprises definitely goes together. And so, And I wouldn't understand why you are having such a problem, actually, because I think what you have, what the woman who is speaking about has a circumcision underwear. This should be something that ourselves as government should be looking at, because we've got a problem of young people who go to the circumcision schools. Some of them, their lives are lost in that process. So if we can get something that is much more technological, that can at least reduce the danger, while at the same time appreciating the traditional way of doing things. And I think that the young lady must not only just speak to government, you must be able to also go out and speak to the traditional leaders and all relevant people, because I think South Africa overall is looking for solutions towards this problem, because which mother and father wants to lose their children through circumcision? And then the last issue, I think I've answered most of the questions, yeah. I think I've answered most of the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We're going to be a little bit productive now. and consolidate the TG's responses to the end, as I hope you will be productive in the questions that you're going to place. I've got 2 questions that I've noticed. If you just 4, 5. Okay, let's do these 5 and then conclude the morning's discussion. Starting at the front. Okay, we'll come to him afterwards. Okay.
Greetings to you, Treasurer General of the African National Congress, and Minister Zulu, Minister of Small Business Development and Cooperatives. I'm Themba Phiri from SABC. SABC is a telecommunications network service provider, also fairly small in the market, with the existence of a duopoly that is there. My point, Minister, is this. I welcome your idea of a fund. We have found in the ICT sector that most of the initiatives which could absorb people to move into the formal economy, especially SMMEs, are failing because there is no supportive funding mechanism, particularly in the ICT sector. This will also go into content production, wherein an opportunity exists to absorb many young people, because this is a new field. If you want to prepare for the 4th industrial revolution, which is about technology development at a massive scale, I propose that government have to be interventionist in its approach. And one of those is to mechanize the intervention through a fund, also through a portal that tracks some of the interventions in the fund for the sectors that you support. Thank you.
Thank you. Just hand the mic to the next table, yes. No, in front, yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vincent. We're coming from China, South Africa Trading and Expo Center, where we relocate in Crown Mine area. Today, I come with my colleague Kevin and our director, Mr. Sam Wu. He is also one of the Chinese leader in our community. And we're having 3 questions, basically, from our experience. We been living in South Africa for almost 15, 20 years, and we're seeing all the problems that small SMEs facing, and we're trying to do something with our abilities and capabilities, try to helping local SMEs. But we always find that the difficulties with to choosing right SMEs or working with the right people. So, for example, we are trying to run a program with Chinese SMEs who can bring in the machine and technology and the materials to South Africa, helping South Africa SMEs to training them and produce whatever it is possible. But now we find a problem that we can't we can't meeting the right the group or the companies that we can working together with. And that's why we want to know that is the ministry or the other organization that can referring us the right members or companies that we can pushing this project through, where we can supply the machine and supply the training course, supply the materials, helping the productions in South Africa. Then those qualified SMEs can go in through their channels, through SIDA or SIFA, to apply their finance to working to get the machines. So we can helping the local companies to this project to moving the first step to bring what's necessary. The second problem that we also find is we are everyone from the media, or a lot of people from the media, they're complaining about Chinese imports, which impact South African industry, which impacting people's life or whatever. But we find, yes, somehow it does, but we see the opportunities with SMEs that what if we can matching SMEs with the Chinese importer directly? If we can we can cut off all the middlemen and then helping the SMEs to lower their buying cost. And those profits will stay in South Africa. We're benefiting all the South Africans. Eventually, we're benefiting all the buyers, all the consumers, and lowering their living cost. So this is something that we can do, and we can try to matching with what South Africa needs through our community and our companies. We would like to know that how shall we going on to doing that. And the third question that we have is by working with PBF, we see the opportunities from our SMEs with Chinese SMEs. In other words, that we see in Joburg, we having Chinese expos 6 times minimum a year. But in China, we don't see that many South African expos there. But China has 1.4 billion people there. It's a big market. How are we going to explore our SMEs more to China or to international? Any like small orders from overseas or any other small investment from overseas, that's gonna change that's gonna change that SME's life. So we here, we are Chinese company based in South Africa. We live in South Africa. We're trying to we're trying to do as what we can. But we also want to working with PBF. We want to working with the ministry that the right way, that how you can using Chinese capital and Chinese resource to helping SMEs in South Africa. Thank you.
Okay. You see, that's how the Chinese do it. 3 for the price of 1. Okay? But I'm going to collect my money for the other 2 still, okay? Right. We go to this middle table. There's 2 there, and then I see 1 there, and then the last one will be you, sir.
Good morning.
Please, to the point, we're running out of time.